Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar talking about data monetization. My name is George Harper. I lead the UK sales team here at Biztory, and I'm going to be the person walking you through this webinar today. So, before we dive in, I just wanted to quickly walk you through what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to cover what exactly is data monetization. The term gets thrown around a lot, so keen to break down what it looks like in practical terms. Then we'll be looking at some common use cases across industries, how some of the customers that we're working with are already leveraging their data for value, both internally and externally. Then we'll walk you through what the data monetization journey looks like from a kind of roadmap perspective, whether you're just starting out, already on the path. This is going to help you assess where you are right now and what steps might come next. But ultimately, we'll come into how do you actually transform data into revenue, looking at different models and approaches that we've used with some of our customers. And then finally, we'll look at something a little bit more hands-on, how we see building a data app here at Biztory. So that's what's on the agenda. And yeah, thanks again for joining us. So first, what is data monetization? In its most basic form, data monetization is the process of turning data into money. So data goes out, money comes in. That's essentially the idea of what we're looking here. What that process actually looks like can vary quite drastically depending on the use case, the monetization model, and depending on how your business works. Another way that you could look at it is simply value realization. So in some cases, the term data monetization might cause confusion, that it's solely based on generating revenue from data, when in reality, using data to lower costs, optimize operational efficiencies could also be an example of data monetization. So really, it's about turning data from a cost center into a value creator. Use case versus model is an important distinction to make. We typically see a lot of our customers tend to get this blurred. So on the left here on the screen, we have the use case. This is the what. What's the problem that you're solving? What business question are you addressing with that data? The way that I try to think about it is the practical application. So it could be reducing churn, it could be optimizing pricing, personalizing marketing. These are all things that stakeholders in a business care about. On the right, we have the data monetization model. That's the how. So how do we actually turn the value that's created by that use case into something that's measurable, whether it's revenue generation, cost saving, or efficiency? So an example that we see quite often is, let's say the use case is predictive maintenance for industrial equipment. The model might be reducing downtime, means lower operational costs. That's the monetization mechanism. It's really key to understand this relationship because it helps businesses build that case that ties directly to the impact, which is what gets buy-in and investment. Not only do you need a strong use case, you need a clear model to translate that into value. So here's a few examples across different industries that can give you a sense of what it can look like in practice. In retail, customer segmentation is a common use case. So by identifying high value segments, targeting them more effectively, you can drive up conversion rates or basket sizes. That's an indirect monetization model using data to increase revenue. In manufacturing, as I touched on before, predictive maintenance could help when equipment will fail. The monetization model here is reducing downtime and maintenance costs, which could potentially save millions annually in a large-scale operation. From a financial services perspectives, data can improve risk scoring. By being more granular with that data to assess things like loan applications, you could reduce default rates, potentially offer better, more personalized pricing, both saving money and growing revenue. And in the SaaS world, product usage data can reveal opportunities to shift to usage-based pricing, identify customers that are ready for upsell. That's another clear path to monetization. But how we often think, and when we're speaking to our customers, it's think about your own business. What are the challenges that you're solving with data today, and how are those efforts being affected? How are those efforts being delivering real value, either directly or indirectly? The goal really is to start mapping those out, and that's where monetization begins. So for the next piece, I'm going to talk around data monetization use cases. So we usually see three main use cases. First is unlocking new revenue streams. So probably the most obvious. This could be selling anonymized data, offering benchmarking reports, or launching a data-powered service that customers are willing to pay for. For example, imagine a telco company selling mobility trend to city planners, or an e-commerce platform offering suppliers premium access to customer insights. The second use case is more internally focused. It's about using data to drive operational efficiency. So think process automation, smarter resource allocation, predictive maintenance, which we've already touched on a couple of times, all things that lead to cost reduction. It's not about making money directly here, but about saving money and scaling faster. And then the third use case is where things get a little bit more complicated and perhaps maybe a little bit more interesting. This is where companies are actually building data products or embedding analytics directly into their applications. This could be dashboards, APIs, or insight tools that are monetized as part of an existing offering or a new offering. If you're in SaaS, for example, it's a huge opportunity to add value and differentiate your product. The one thing that I would highlight is that these use cases aren't mutually exclusive. Some companies start with internal efficiency and then move on to revenue generation. Others just build a product solution right from the start. The key thing really is when you're thinking about those things, when you're thinking about those use cases, is about thinking strategically about the value of your data and not just the volume of data that you have. So as a starting point, let's look at new revenue streams. And this is about turning data from a passive resource into an active revenue generating asset. So a lot of organizations are sitting on a gold mine of raw data, customer behavior, operational metrics, transactional history. The idea here is to commercialize that data in some way. It could mean packaging the data itself or offering some sort of insights based alongside it. Either way, it's about creating a direct financial return from your information assets. The two standout monetization models that we most commonly work with our customers are these. And the first is data as a product or a service. So in this model, you're essentially selling the raw data or the access to it. Maybe that's as a subscription, or maybe it's via an API. A good example of this is think of a retailer selling product level sales to product level sales data to brands for information. The second monetization model that we see is insights as a product or a service. So this is where you're kind of taking another step beyond, and it's a little bit more advanced. You're not just selling the data, you're actually layering analytics on top of that to deliver insights to customers or partners that they wouldn't be able to get on their own. So this could be a benchmarking portal, marketing intelligence dashboard, or a tailored insights package. This is where your expertise on that data becomes part of the value proposition. The key here is understanding what your data is worth to others. So it's not just about dumping spreadsheets, it's about wrapping the data in context, access, and trust. And that's where the real monetization happens. So secondly, if we move into the operational efficiency, now, these often do sound like internal wins, but they do also open the door to external monetization opportunities. So think about how your internal optimizations and insights can become offerings that others are willing to pay for to integrate into their own decision making. When you optimize your own operations data, like forecasting demand, reducing delivery times, improving production efficiency, you start to uncover data and models that others may benefit from. For example, a logistics firm could expose the route optimization data via an API to e-commerce platforms, helping them improve their customer deliveries. Now, there tends to be three key data monetization models when we're looking at this specific use case. The first being enhancing that product offering, as I touched on there. And that's where the insights that are gained through that optimization can be packaged into a value-added service for your clients, partners. The second is those strategic decision-making tools. So your operational data can inform your client's strategic decisions too. So as an example, a retailer that optimizes their stock levels using their consumer data could sell that access to real-time market demand dashboards to their suppliers. And the final one is customer insights. Companies often collect deep behavioral data as part of their own operations. When this is anonymized and aggregated, this can be incredibly valuable externally. So the real power here is in productizing the internal value that you've already unlocked. If you've already built a data model or a dashboard that makes your business run smoother, typically the first question is to ask yourself, could this help someone too? And if so, is there a monetization opportunity part of that? Finally, this is where for us, data monetization gets really, really exciting. The last two use cases were about selling data and insights. This one is about productizing them. And this is about where we're building a fully fledged data application, platform, or a portal, things that your customers and partners can interact with directly. These use cases often start with an internal insight or service that prove valuable, which then evolves into a standalone product. Maybe you've built a dashboard that helps your team forecast demand. Now imagine turning that into a subscription-based web portal that your suppliers use to plan production. So this model is all about creating product experience around your data. It might be in an external facing dashboard, it might be in a branded web app, or a customer portal, anything that delivers curated insights at scale. What makes this powerful is that you're not just selling the data, you're delivering decisions, tools, and an interface that people use to act on data. So some real world examples of this is a fintech company might offer an API that feeds personalized credit insights into partners' workflows. A consumer goods company might create a retailer portal with shelf insights and sales forecasts for their suppliers. Or a health tech firm might offer a web-based tool that tracks real-time operational efficiencies for hospitals. This is the most scalable and we find the most defensible form of data monetization. So turning your internal analytics capability into a product that others rely on. We see it position some of our customers as a true data-first business, not just with insights, but also the infrastructure and IP that's monetizable as part of that. So now that we've explored the different types of data monetization, from selling data, insight services, and data products, the big question is, where do you start and how do you actually build towards that vision? From our experience, this isn't just a switch that you flip, it's a series of stages that go from data exploration all the way to a fully productized service. So let's take a look at that actual journey now and what it looks like in practice. So this curve that we've built out is what we call the data monetization maturity model. We think it's super important for us because it helps avoid the trap of trying to jump straight into selling dashboards and APIs before an organization is ready. The key message really is that there's no ROI in just having data. The value only comes when data is used to create products, insights, and services that someone else is willing to pay for. This curve shows you the steps from cost center to growth driver. So if we start on the left-hand side where data is an asset, at this point, this is where your organization is collecting and storing data, maybe even reporting on it, but it's still a cost center. You haven't identified how you could monetize it, and there may be things like compliance or storage costs associated with just having the data. Stage two is data monetization exploration. So internally, what we would refer to as the discovery phase. So you're starting to ask, could we sell this data? Could we offer insights to partners? You may even build an early proof of concept or run a small pilot to test those ideas with some real users or buyers as well. Stage three is the data monetization value. So here you've validated an idea, you've built an MVP, whether that's a dashboard, whether that's a portal, an API, but you can clearly tie that MVP to value. And that might be new revenue, that could be customer acquisition. But this stage is often where your first commercial data product is born. And that flows nicely into the final stage of data monetization acceleration. So you've proven the model, you're scaling, maybe you've got a pricing model in place, customer segmentation in place, you're doing true embedded analytics, white labeling, and at this point, you're treating data like a business with real customers and a roadmap. Now, not every organization will or even should jump to straight straight to stage 4 overnight. The key is understanding where you are now and what capabilities you need to move on to the next stage. And that's where strategy meets execution. So it's about answering questions like, who's your audience or market for this data? What's the value proposition? How do you even package that data? And in the next few slides, we'll break that down. Because as I say, it's about whether someone else would pay to access or interact with that data, and ultimately make decisions on how to do that. So when we talk about transforming data into revenue, it's helpful to break that down into 2 broad models: indirect data monetization and direct data monetization. Each of them create value in different ways, and understanding the difference will really help you shape the right approach for your business. So let's start on the left with indirect data monetization. This is where you don't have to actively pass on the cost of analytics to customers or charge them directly in order to monetize it. It's not about selling your data directly. It's more about enhancing your core product as opposed to developing something new. Charging customers for data and insights can be a shortcut to monetize data, of course, but it's absolutely not always the right strategy for it. Instead, there are many different ways that you can use data monetization to generate value indirectly. Think increased acquisition rates, improved conversion rates, higher engagement and retention with your product or service. A really good example of that I'm sure most of us have come across is Spotify Wrapped. So by using listener data to create a personalized year, this gives us our kind of Spotify Wrap that encourages to share on social media, right? This enhances brand visibility, user engagement, and not only deepens kind of, I guess, user loyalty by providing them a reflective look at their personal listening habits, but also drives organic promotion and new user acquisitions as people share those summaries, effectively turning your customers into brand ambassadors. It also gives Spotify valuable insights into music trends, listener preferences, which aids in things for them in terms of content creation and targeted advertising too. Another example is Dyson's air purifiers for several reasons, mainly because they use the data collected to not only enhance the functionality of their product, but also drive broader business objectives. So Dyson air purifiers collect environmental data such as pollutants and allergen levels. This data helps them improve the product's efficiency and effectiveness in real time by adapting its performance based on the air quality devices. So by analyzing the data from multiple devices, Dyson can then refine and enhance its future product designs to better meet their customers' needs. It also allows them to deliver a personalized experience. So, for example, users can monitor their indoor air quality in their own house via an app, which uses the data to provide insights and recommendations to them. This not only increases their user engagement, but also increases customer satisfaction and loyalty. The next thing is that the insights gained from collecting this data can inform targeted marketing and sales strategies. So understanding how Dyson customers are using their air purifiers, what concerns they have, what they are most likely to use their devices for, helps Dyson target their marketing messages, offer timely upgrades, and other related products as well. And while the primary function of the air purifier is to not sell data, the information collected can lead to the development of new revenue streams. So, for instance, data-driven insights about air quality and user patterns can be used to develop new products and services that complement the air purifier, such as a more advanced filter or other health-related products. All of this helps Dyson better align their offerings with market demands and consumer trends. So this is a real kind of clear way that, you know, they're not making money from the data that they're actually getting here. They're using that to enhance other aspects of the business that lead to increased sales, improved product offering, and just a stronger competitive position in the market. The final one that I'll touch on here is Swift, which is an online cycling and running platform, combines gaming and fitness, if you haven't come across it before. again, very similar to how Dyson used data from that perspective. Swift are using it from more of a kind of community building and social aspect. So data on user performance and preferences is used to foster a sense of community among other users. They can run virtual races, group workouts based on common interests and ability, encouraging social interaction and driving kind of network effects where the value of the services increases as more people use it. The data that's collected from all of these users to identify the trends and preferences can guide the development of new features, routes, and training programs. By being able to understand what users like the most, that allows Swift to prioritize updates that have the greatest impact on customer satisfaction and market demand. They're also able to use this data to segment the user base and create ultra-targeted marketing campaigns that are more likely to resonate with different user groups. And additionally, this data can be used to attractive to potential partners, sponsors, such as sports brands and life coaches that are interested in the active community. And the final kind of key bit here is the subscription and upsell opportunity that they're able to drive from this. By analyzing the user data, Swift can identify users that may be interested in premium subscriptions or special events that offer additional features or exclusive content. That targeted approach to upselling can increase revenue without alienating users with irrelevant offers. So again, Swift's model of indirect monetization is about using data to continually improve the platform user experience, enhance their product offerings, but really tailor their marketing efforts and create opportunities for upsells and partnerships outside of that. So that hopefully gives a bit of an idea and flavor of how indirect data monetization can work, and some of the kind of use cases and exposure that you probably had yourselves to indirect data monetization. But if we flip that and say, well, what happens when data itself becomes a product? And that's direct data monetization, when you're packaging those data and insights or analytics as a paid offering. Now, as I've said before, that could be in the form of a subscription dashboard, an API, a benchmarking report, or a fully embedded analytics products that's part of your stack. It could be one of those, it could be all of those. But what we see is that this model scales particularly well when you have, firstly, unique or hard to source data. You've built trust and got access to your audience already, and you can productize those insights in a way that delivers immediate value. Some examples that we've been involved with across industries is a transport platform selling real-time route data to third-party logistics providers, a retail media network offering audience segments to brands for targeted campaigns, and a fintech API that provides market sentiment scores to investment apps. Now, it is worth noting that this model of monetization requires more rigor, particularly around data governance, security, and pricing, but ultimately the payoff is higher too. You're creating a standalone revenue stream with this model, not just supporting existing ones. It's worth noting that we don't see direct monetization as a fit for every organization, but if you've got valuable data and the right infrastructure, it can really evolve into a high margin business line. So this is the core transformation behind a direct data monetization. Again, you're not just selling data, you're selling a product built with data. So if we take a look at this graph here, on the left-hand side, we've got data, raw, unstructured, often pretty difficult to use on its own. And on the right, we've got product, a curated package experience that delivers value to a customer. The magic is in the middle, and that's the journey from raw data to something that people are willing to pay for. So if we look along the bottom there, raw data being messy, incomplete, sometimes valuable, but often difficult to monetize as is. The second step is aggregated data, so more structured, clean, and often anonymized to meet compliance standards. The third step is packaged data, so that's data that's been grouped, filtered, or formatted for a specific use case or audience. And then just before the final step, it's package insight. So now we're adding interpretation, decision-making value. This could be a dashboard, a report, an alert. And at the final step, it's you're offering a data product, something that's already good to go to plug into someone's business. often self-served, and priced as a standalone solution. The further you move right from the left-hand side to the right-hand side of this spectrum, the more valuable and scalable that your offering becomes. It's not about data ownership, it's about product thinking. So when we talk about direct data monetization, it's a true mindset shift. You don't want to just stop at data, you want to invest in it, turning it into something people use, because that's where the revenue is. So now that we've covered the concept and the journey of direct monetization, let's talk about what goes into making it work. It's not just about the data, you need to think like a product team. And that means mastering, from our perspective, these three key areas: experience, architecture, and value. Direct data monetization is a real cross-functional game, and you need to have strong product thinking, technical excellence, and commercial clarity working together in harmony in order to be able to turn that raw data into a marketable product. So that's where we shift from strategy to execution. And it's important to say, building a data product isn't just about surfacing charts or exporting CSVs. It's about designing something that delivers repeatable value that can scale commercially. So what we'll go through here is what defines a good data product, the life cycle from concept to launch, the roles, tooling, collaboration it takes, and where we see that teams often go wrong. So let's look at the first pillar, experience. Why does this matter? Because no matter how powerful your insights are, if the experience of consuming them is clunky, confusing, or difficult, you're going to lose users. So your data product needs to be usable by all stakeholders, whether that's different teams, partner organizations, or even non-technical users. You need to think about permissions, mobile access, browser compatibility, and performance at scale. It's not just about how it looks, it's about guiding attention to what matters. Great design turns data into decisions, and it helps users instantly see value and take action. You need to have context, build a narrative. What's the story behind these numbers? Why does it matter? A strong narrative through charts, annotations, or guided flows helps users understand and trust what they're seeing. Interactivity is a real big thing. Static dashboards are a thing of the past. Users expect the ability at a basic level to be able to drill down, filter, and explore the data in ways that matters to them. And that's ultimately what makes the product feel alive. The final piece is think about an adaptive design. Specifically, think about the devices, whether it's being used on a tablet, a mobile, or embedded in an iframe. The product needs to flex for the context. If we get this right, then users keep coming back, not just because the data is valuable, but because the experience is frictionless and intuitive. And that's how you build the stickiness into your data product. I'm hoping that this really drives home why experience matters so much, especially in the context of data products, because what we're designing for here is retention engagement that leads to ROI. This graph on the left, it shows you how saturated the app landscape has become. So for example, there's over 5 million apps in the App Store. That means even if your product's brilliant, you're still competing for attention and retention every single day. On the right-hand chart, that's the reality check. Day one, retention drops to 27%, and by day 7, most apps are struggling to retain 10% of users. Now, imagine if you've built a beautifully engineered data product, but people don't get it and can't use it. They don't see the value enough, they're gone. And that's why experience is not just a nice to have, it's real make or break. The onboarding flow, loading speed, layout, and clarity all contribute to whether a user comes back. And for data products specifically, this is even more important because you're dealing with users who aren't analysts. They need help navigating, interpreting, and acting on what they see. And if your experience doesn't meet them where they are, then your monetization model isn't going to stick. So as you build, prioritize experience from day one. Don't wait until after the MVP, because if users leave, likelihood is they're not coming back. Now that we've covered the importance of user experience, let's look at the architecture. This is all about infrastructure and the technical scaffolding that supports your data product behind the scenes. So starting with authentication and governance, you need to be able to control who sees what. You need to have a robust authentication mechanisms and a clear data governance policies, especially if you're monetizing sensitive or partner-specific insights. It's an absolute non-negotiable. When we look at data access and scalability, your architecture needs to allow on-demand access to data, ideally via APIs or query layers that scale with usage. Whether you've got 5 users or 5,000 users, the performance has to hold up. Caching, indexing, query optimization, they're not nice to haves. They're table stakes for a successful data product. You'll also need to think about automation and stability. How is that data refreshed? How are errors flagged and resolved? A great experience will fall apart fast if the data's outdated, unreliable, or constantly breaking. And the final piece, whether you're if you're offering this product within another platform, say in an iframe or an integrated experience, your embedding strategy really matters. You'll need to consider the load times there, the SSO integration, hosted infrastructure, and how updates are deployed across different environments. The key thing really is that you don't need a perfect system out of the gate, but you do need a scalable, secure, and reliable one. Architecture is the foundation that's going to let your product grow without compromising on performance or trust. So let's take a look at what key components that you'll actually need to build that functional data product. Think of this as your data product tech stack, from source to insight to experience. So step 1 is data sources and connectivity. This is where everything begins. You need to connect the dots to the systems generating that data. CRMs, ERPs, websites, whatever you need access to, where your data lives, you need to reach that. So tools like Fivetran and Rivery help ingestion from dozens of data sources without building custom data pipelines. Once you've got that data flowing, you need somewhere to store it. So platforms like Snowflake or Databricks allow you to manage both structured and unstructured data at scale with governance and performance built in. Data processing and transformation is where raw data becomes usable. So tools like DBT let you build reliable data models that enforce transformations and document everything transparently. The way that we often talk about this is the difference between a spaghetti data mess and a clean, usable, logical layers. Here's where the magic happens for the end user, turning data into insights. So tools like Tableau, Sigma, ThoughtSpot allow you to deliver dashboards, search-based analytics, or embedded insights directly in-app. And this is where your customers start seeing value. Your UX and UI is where your front layer. This is where users engage with that product. A good UI is more than pretty. So, you know, intuitive, responsive, aligned with the real life workflows. This is what determines whether your users adopt the product or leave. Final step is underpinning all of this with security and governance. So access control, auditing, compliance, encryption, especially critical if you're monetizing data externally. Again, you don't have to build all of this from scratch, but you do need to design these components to work together to support your product strategy and scale as you grow. Once you've defined your data product vision and stack, the next big decision is, do you build the solution in-house or buy parts of it from an existing platform? Both approaches have trade-offs, and what's right depends on your scale, strategy, and internal capabilities. So building in-house typically involves a higher initial investment. You'll need dedicated dev resources, infrastructure, ongoing maintenance. In return, you gain more control over how those things scale and evolve with your systems. If you need deep customization, maybe specific for industry workflows or UI control, then building can give you that tailored experience. It's also easier to align tightly with your existing ecosystem. And reliability. Of course, with great power comes great responsibility. You'll need to ensure performance, uptime, and security are solid because you own it end to end. On the buy side, buying off-the-shelf tools, whether it's analytics, your storage, or even your portal, typically will mean lower upfront costs and often faster deployment. You'll also get predictable budgeting and vendor support. The trade-off here is often limited customizations. Some platforms offer great flexibility, but some require you to adapt to their model. And of course, there's always the risk of vendor lock-in. On the plus side, these solutions are often battle tested. They've got support teams, SLAs, constant improvements, and you can move faster, potentially sacrifice the uniqueness or future extensibility for that reliability. Now, the right answer definitely isn't binary. A lot of what we see is that data products can be hybrid. Maybe you buy your analytics platform, but build your own data modeling layer or UX front end. What matters is aligning it to the team capacity, product ambition, and your go-to-market timeline. So we've talked about how to build a great product and architect it for scale, but none of it matters if you don't capture, if you don't know how to capture the value you're creating. And that's this third pillar, value, is where data becomes, where a data product becomes a business. So looking at kind of the key points in here, pricing, getting that model right is one of the trickiest and most important decisions. Will it be usage-based, tiered, per seat, flat fee? And more importantly, how do you tie that price into the value delivered, not just data volume or features? Second topic, branding. So a great product still needs to be understood and trusted. Branding helps position your product in the market, who's it for, what it solves, why it's different. Is it a premium insights portal? Is it a flexible white label platform? Your brand sets that expectation. When we look at DevOps and delivery, if your product's cloud-based, self-service, or integrated, then the DevOps model really matters. You're going to need version control, release cycles, rollback plans, all of the things that SaaS products rely on. Your users are going to expect reliability and responsiveness, even if it is just a dashboard. Software and hardware considerations. So depending on your product, you might need to plan for client-side requirements like browser compatibility, VPN restrictions, or on-prem data synchronization. Your tech footprint is really going to influence your value story, especially for those enterprise buyers as well. And finally, what's your go-to-market motion? Are you upselling to existing clients, going after a new segment, embedding in a partner product? You need to have a monetization roadmap that matches your data product's maturity and reach. So value isn't just what your data product does, it's about how you price it, position it, and scale it. And without this pillar, your data monetization story likely will fall flat, even if it's got great tech and design. One of the most effective ways that we've seen our partners monetize their data products is through tiered packaging. This lets you serve different user needs, encourage upgrades, and align price with value without giving one size fits all pricing. So if we look at the kind of features that kind of build up this tiered packaging from a historical data perspective, typically more historical data context means more value. So in your basic tier, maybe you only offer 3 to 9 months of data, but in more premium tiers, you offer 2+ years. And that could be for those users that are doing more long-term trend analysis or forecasting. The second piece is granularity. Tiering granularity is a really clean way to differentiate values. Basic users get aggregated insights, which is great for quick snapshots, but power users or analysts in your top tier may need row or column level access to build their own custom views. From a data richness and attributes perspective, here you're scaling from static reports in the entry tier to exploration and scheduling in the premium tier. It's not just about access, it's about control over how that data is consumed. Then the more a user can tailor that experience, the more value it becomes. So maybe you start with no filters, then you introduce basic filtering, eventually give top tier users full flexibility, metric choices, build your own dashboards. And the final piece is user rights. So lower tiers might be view only, mid tiers might get exploration rights, top tiers get automation, write back capabilities, like exporting to workflows or triggering events. What you're seeing here, it's not just feature gating, it's a way to align the product experience with the product strategy. So let the users grow with you and unlock that value as you scale. And build the packages based on how your customers interact or will use the product. What strategy do you use to actually set the price though? And it typically comes down to these two approaches, value-based and cost-based. So if we look at value-based pricing, that approach focuses on what your product is worth to the customer, not what it costs you to deliver. So typically it's the gold standard for data products because you're delivering high impact and hard to replicate insights. The factors that build into this are firstly, product uniqueness. If your data is one of a kind, hard to find elsewhere, you can justify premium pricing. The more niche, exclusive, or tailored it is, the more value typically it will hold. The second kind of key element is accessibility. So if you're solving access issues, removing a silo, unifying sources, or just delivering it in a usable format, that unlocks a lot of perceived value for a customer or end user. The third thing is the required expertise. Think about how much time or consulting effort you're saving your customer or partner. If they'd otherwise need analysts or integration specialists, you're offering convenience, and that can be priced in. And the final thing is stickiness and decision value. Ultimately, are you helping customers make better decisions, spot opportunities, reduce risk? Those downstream outcomes are incredibly valuable, and they're the sorts of things that you should use to influence pricing. On the flip side, you've got cost-based pricing. Get my words out there. This is more traditional. So calculate delivery costs, data licenses, infrastructure support, add a margin on top. A lot of people start with this method. It's predictable, easy to model, and it's often expected from a lot of businesses from a financial perspective, but it can leave money on the table, particularly if your product is delivering more value than it costs to build. There's no rule that says you can't use both. Often, as I say, companies start with cost base to cover their margins and then move towards that value-based pricing as they better understand their impact. The key is making sure your price reflects how much your data product is worth and not just about how much it costs. So we've covered a lot today, from what data monetization looks in practice, how to build and price a successful data product, but the big question is, what's next for you? So wherever you are on that journey, maybe you're just starting to explore some external use cases, maybe you're building your third data product. The key is you don't have to make that leap overnight. What matters is making steady and smart progress from exploration to MVP to a scalable product. And based on everything we've covered today, we often find that a lot of our customers and partners fall into one of these 4 different starting points. And each one calls for a slightly different step. So if I start in the top left, data monetization discovery call. So if you're at the very beginning of this journey and you just want to explore possibilities, this is your starting point. It's a low commitment conversation where we can help you map out your options based on your current data maturity and overall business context. Moving over to the right, we've got the data monetization strategy workshop. So this is for those who have got a little bit of momentum. Maybe you've got a few internal use cases or an idea of what those use cases look like. We can run a focus workshop. These help align stakeholders, prioritize those use cases, and start to sketch out a monetization roadmap. Moving back over to the left, from a discovery perspective, we've got our data and AI maturity audit. A lot of people are unsure whether their data foundation is ready for monetization. And this audit is perfect for you. We can come in and assess your current tools, data quality, governance, and readiness across the board. This is especially important if AI is in the mix. And in the bottom right, we have a proof of value sprint. If you've got a clear idea and you just want to start building fast, this is where we can help turn you a concept into something real. Our proof of value sprints help you design and test monetizable MVPs, validate that ROI, and de-risk that go-to-market that you have. So wherever you're starting, we've got a solution to help you take that on that next step. And if you're not sure which quadrant you're in, we're more than happy to help you figure that out too. You'll see on the screen there's a QR code. Feel free to go on that. That provides a little bit more detail around these use cases, and you can also reach out to myself and my team to discuss any of these. That's it for today. Thank you very much for hanging around and listening to me talk at you for 45 minutes. Have Happy to take some questions now if anyone's got any, but if not, we can finish there, and I'll let you guys enjoy the rest of your week.